Hi. Okay, so I'm in a different location today. Not in my bedroom, for one. I'm in a cafe, but it's like super empty. Can't show you because my phone is currently resting on a boba cup, so it's like being propped up by a straw. So that's cool. Ingenuity. I'm an ingenuity, whatever, same thing. Um, Today I want to talk about parental guilt. It's such a concept, something that I had never really thought about. The first time I realized the depth of parental guilt, or like even like thought this concept could be possible, was last April. At the end of last April, Love, Simon had just come out in my country, and I was so stoked to see it. I went to see it with a couple friends, and there's a scene I will never, or like I haven't been able to forget, and I haven't been able to get it out of my mind. And obviously, like before going to see it, I'd read a couple of think pieces on how like Jennifer Garner is always typecast as like a parent, or like, you know, the nice wife or whatever. But anyway, in this movie, Jennifer Garner was the mom, and there's this scene where Simon, the main character of Love, Simon, incidentally, there's a scene where Simon comes home late with like just with his friend, and like the parents are like sort of at a loss, because I think it was Simon, if I remember correctly, Simon came home like later than his curfew, but the parents were like okay-ish with it, if I remember correctly. And then right after they had made this like decision or whatever, or they had this interaction with Simon, as Simon's stuck. Oh, I know, Simon was drunk. He was like obviously drunk, but the parents decided to turn a blind eye for now and just let it slide. And then after that, there's a scene where the two parents, Jennifer Garner and the other man, who's the dad, and they were sitting on the couch and they were just like, we're good parents, right? Like, we're good parents. And that scene stuck with me throughout the whole movie. Like, I can't tell you how weird that scene was for me to watch, I think. Because I think that there's something like a Confucian ideal kind of thing where like obviously the filial piety is so important. And something interesting about this translation, filial piety, and I think in Chinese there's no implication of piety, not exactly, but you know, piety is religious. Piety means worship, it means, you know, obedience, it means stuff like that, and it's very spiritual, it's very religious in nature, like this word piety. And I always thought like this concept is interesting because from a Western perspective, obviously people, Western scholars or Western perspective on filial piety, which in Chinese is called 孝顺, like the Western perspective is like, oh, you must obey your parents at all costs, and it's like very like very strict, rather than as like a moral system. It's like it's interpreted as like a very strict set of beliefs, I suppose, and that's interesting to me on its own. But furthermore, another thing that I think I found interesting personally was filial piety implies worship, and that's something that I think it's internalized, but it's really hard to see that, especially if you grow up in like, you know, in the modern day society. There's definitely less of like an element of overt worship, obviously, but this idea of like parents can do no wrong, it's definitely ingrained, and I don't think it's only for like societies infused with Confucianism. I don't think it's only for societies where filial piety is emphasized. I think parents can do, like, seeing things from a parent's perspective is, at least for young people, I think it's difficult. And I think, you know, throughout adolescence, you start to realize that adults in your life are not perfect and stuff like that. And that's definitely one of the major clashes that kids like me, or like just teens in general, they just go through this phase where they realize that not only is the world not perfect, but their role models aren't perfect either, and that's really such a breakthrough. But I think another breakthrough was this concept of parental guilt, where I think because parents are supposed to be authoritative figures, and the idea of them being insecure about their parenting, not necessarily knowing if their parenting is the right kind of parenting. I mean, obviously everyone should have some healthy kind of reflection about their choices, but to me that was never a thing that I saw. That was never something that I could understand, was like my parents might experience parental guilt as well. And so, you know how weird it is for someone to, especially someone my age, to like read about themselves in like the Atlantic and stuff like that. Like, not myself by name, I'm not saying like I'm famous or anything like that. Reading about the current pressures that are put on college kids or like high school kids trying to get into college admissions, that stuff is so potent. And reading about the Momo Challenge, for example. I'm currently making a video about the Momo Challenge. So if you guys want to watch that, it'll probably be linked. I'm not sure if it's posted yet because my editing is terrible and it takes me months to edit something. So that's great, but yeah. In any case, I just wanted to say, like, it keeps resurfacing, right? This idea of like parents, obviously they think like, oh, pressure. Like they impose more and more pressure on kids. And then at the end of the day, it's like, there is this massive guilt that exists. And I don't know if this is just like a hot take, I think, but after reading like this one piece in the Atlantic about how students at Gunn High School in Palo Alto, which I'm gonna be a student in Palo Alto next year, so reading about this was very close-ish to my heart, I guess. I guess like reading about the high suicide rates in Palo Alto, in Gunn High School, in Palo Alto High School, I believe, or just neighboring high schools where it's extremely cutthroat, extremely competitive, and kids feel like they aren't close with their parents because they only feel the pressure to succeed. And I think, you know, that's just like the weird thing is like, for kids like me, that stuff is normalized. And that's why it's so weird to read about it on in like a newspaper, because it's like, what's on some level, it's hard for me to take a step back and not be like, oh, what's the big deal? And like, I know that's messed up. But I think like viewing it from a parental guilt angle really helped me understand that our parents are the ones who know that this isn't normal, because they're the ones who weren't brought up in that environment, and they impose this environment on us as like a way to shape a better future. So they're the ones who are able to distance themselves from the effects and see clearly, perhaps, the consequences of their actions and how they differ. And compared to, like, for example, I think like compared to certain, I think like, when it comes to certain, so like, whereas like for the Momo Challenge or something like that, you know, in the Momo Challenge, it's like, but parents are guilty about burning out and like not being able to provide for their kids, and they feel very insecure in that aspect. And that is also something that's really interesting to me, because, you know, Momo feeds on parents' guilt, as I talk about in that video. I'm not sure if it's up, but Momo feeds on parents' guilt that they can't look after their kids all the time and they can't afford babysitting, so they have to let their kids watch YouTube Kids, and yet YouTube Kids is so inherently toxic. And I think parents, obviously, they know on some level that some of these behaviors aren't necessarily the best for their kids, but they also hope for the best, and they hope that, oh, if our kids can survive this, that will shape them to be better people, or it will help us be a better functioning, cohesive family. And I don't know, I just think the concept of parental guilt is really interesting, because I think it's helped me view family relationships in a different way, rather than in like a very domineering way, I suppose, or like in a very worshipful way. I think like realizing that everyone has like these, I guess, insecurities about their own choices really is a step. It's a huge step. And as parents become, I think at the end of the day, it's that parents are not forgiven for any of their parenting mistakes. So the pressure on parents is high whenever there is a stage for their kids to compete. And that makes it hard. And because parenting is like one of the things where it's like, it's a highly individual as in like each family is like its own parenting style, its own, like there's not that much, I hesitate to say that there's not that much community, because obviously I'm not involved in that community, I don't know. But it just feels like when everyone goes home at the end of the day after work and stuff, they just take care of their kids. And you might talk to other parents, you might make friends with other parents, but is that really, at the end of the day, parenting is a very solo endeavor, I think. And that can breed a lot of guilt and or a lot of like imposter syndrome, like, am I doing this right? And understanding that has helped me immensely in humanizing like this aspect of a family, I think. And that's just really, really interesting to me. Okay, I'm gonna go because I'm about to miss my bus. Okay, I'll catch you in some other time. Bye.